Before I even asked them, said, oh, you're going to hit the video. And then they were like, oh, there's an audio button. It can record what I say. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
You know what you should do after all of this? You could do what's it called? When you have the cuts.
Oh, the bloopers.
Yes,
we'll do the
do
blooper
a blooper
reel
Mm-hmm.
at the end. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. So I'm here with Candace Crothers at Glenwood Elementary School. She teaches 3rd grade. We have been piloting a one-to-one learning environment with computers in the classroom, and Candace has a cart of Chromebooks here, and she's been using them in various ways. One of the things that I understand is that you have been doing a lot of work with writing and with sort of connecting students with the outside world in terms of current events, community events. And I was just sort of wondering, just generally speaking, why do you incorporate those things into your teaching?
Well, I think one thing as educators we're striving for is, one, we're building up 21st century learners. And so we want to expose them to real life situations. We also want to expose them to the technology that they're going to be using, even though it's going to change as they get older, but to expose them to the different ways that communication is shared in the world today. Another thing that we're trying to do is embed the writing and integrate literacy and writing within the content that we are learning as well. Mm-hmm. So I have found several websites that, News ELA being one, Time for Kids, where they generate kid-friendly information with current events that the students can access. And for a Time for Kids article that we looked at, I embedded it within a Google Classroom, assigned it to my students, gave them some response type questions for them to respond to, and then the students created Google Docs in which they responded referencing the article on actually an event that was occurring here in Chapel Hill with reducing and recycling food waste. And another one, News ELA, has just a wealth of different information that connects with science and social studies content, but you can also search through with the standards. So looking at your different grade level standards, and it generates articles based on those standards, and it generates articles based on Lexile level too, so that you can differentiate for your students. And last week my students were given 4 different articles with real life situations to read about that related to social studies, communities, citizenship. And the students read it. News ELA has a really nice format in the fact that you assign the article just like you would in a Google Classroom. The students read the article, and while they have the article still up, they can generate a written response that ELA has created based on what they have read. For those of you who are familiar with M-Class, some of the writing questions they look very familiar and similar to the M-Class writing prompts that students are given, but they are standards-based. And then there's also a 4 to 5 question quiz that the students can practice referencing the text. So it's embedding a lot of different things. We're looking at using 21st century communication tools to locate information. We're using that to also report back to the teacher, referencing the text, telling what they know, expressing their opinions, kind of delving into that critical thinking without using paper. But then also we're providing them with an opportunity to engage in real life learning experiences that are going to mirror some of the things that they're going to be doing as they get older and as they go into the workplace.
Sure, yeah. So, and how do you think that the technology, does it help to develop their critical thinking skills? In terms of, responding to different texts and maybe responding to each other and to you?
I think it does. I think that it is a learning process. as a teacher, I still need to scaffold. I still need to, at this point, for the third graders, provide them with sentence stems, just like I would if we were doing a talking discussion or if we were writing something in a notebook. So providing them with the sentence starters that they might want to use when they're responding digitally as well. But I think that it is a process to get them to also maybe even look at sample written responses that students or the teacher has generated and critique those things. So to have examples of what a good response looks like based on a reading article, so that they have that as a model to go by.
Yeah, for sure. What has your biggest challenge been in terms of this rollout with the Chromebooks?
Well, I think the biggest challenge for me personally has been the wealth of information that is available. So thinking about, you have Pear Deck, you have News ELA, you have Google Classroom. How do you access those in the best way to fit the outcome that you are desiring from your students? And so I'm looking at how to balance it. How do I take what I have learned, this exciting new piece of technology, and really just engage my learners in it so that the outcome is effective, efficient, and it develops those strong critical thinking skills.
You mentioned a book trailer, and we've talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about that book trailer and the specific exercise that they did with that? Because I thought that was really interesting.
Yes. So many of the students are not necessarily familiar with book trailers. They have seen movie trailers before, but book trailers are generated to entice children to read certain books. And Citizens Kid was the book series that I was looking at, and they publish books that relate to a lot of social studies, economic, worldly type issues. And this one was about creating your own country. So we had been looking at citizenship, communities, global economies, and the students had to look at this book trailer, which was only 30 seconds long, and then they had to write about, does this entice you to read the book and why? And then to apply it. Well, if you were to create your own country, what kind of steps would you take to do so in an effective way? And so Citizens Kid has several different book trailers based on the books that they have really published that I think tie in those elements of the reading and the social studies standards.
Yeah. What kind of communities did they come up with? I mean, it's an exercise I almost want to do.
It's very interesting. Some of the students really focused on their flags and what their flags would look like, and how that would be, why the symbols would be important to include in their flags. Some of them focused on how they would make sure everything was fair. And then they talked about how some of the steps that they would take to make sure that the government ran smoothly. So it was a wide variety of ideas.
Right. And then did you go back in and comment on their work?
I did. I went back in, and after I graded it, I sent them an email when I returned it to them, and I tried to give them feedback in regards of what I appreciated about what they said, their creativity, their response, and then try to focus on something that they could include next time when they do their response to think about.
Right.
To make it better.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great exercise. Does it feel different with every student having a device? I mean, is there a different movement of kids around the room and that kind of thing?
With Glenwood, the third grade last year, we had kind of moved into, we were able to have more of the 1-to-1 ratio. So I think the fact that I know that no matter what, I don't have to sign up for the laptop cart or the Chromebooks. I know that no matter what I plan, I am going to have that access, and the kids are going to have that access to the technology. It makes it a little bit easier to say, okay, I can commit to 30 minutes of creating a Pear Deck or 30 minutes of creating a Kahoot, and not have to worry about, did I create that in angst in the fact that I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to have access to the technology or not. So knowing that it's there, it's accessible, each student has access it makes you more willing to take risks and plan around that technology piece.
Yeah, it's a tool you can grab off the shelf at any time that you need it.
Yeah.